what would our rhythm look like? And please feel free to draw like 3 complexes. 3 cycles, I mean, so I know that you.
And you're saying this is junctional, so the...
I didn't say it's junctional. I said you started with a normal sinus rhythm. You have a normal sinus rhythm. And the only thing that is happening is there is a drug that is affecting the AV node. And that effect has been to close a bunch of the normally working conduction channels in the AV node. There are less conduction channels in the AV node that are open. But there is a consistent number of them that are open.
P wave fire normally. Can we discuss it now?
No, draw.
It's true.
Draw. Draw. Draw based on my words.
What do you call that? What was it? Junctional. That first one was
Junctional.
perigrade or
Oh.
antegrade.
Antegrade and then retrograde. How do you spell antegrade? A-N-T? Like anta? Or ant?
Longer time for the AV node.
Because you're discussing it anyway, you might as well discuss it.
Yeah, that's an
So-
anti-grade.
I'd say
I think once it passes.
I just wasn't sure.
So, you had
all the electrical
a normal sinus rhythm, and you had a drug
This is getting through.
that closed conduction channels in the AV node consistently. Yes?
Yes.
All right, who can talk that through?
We talk.
One from that table. Andrew, take a shot at it.
Okay, so you would have a P wave, and then because the AV node would be more convoluted in a sense, it would be harder for the signal to get through. There'd be more of a delay, so there would be a really long PR interval, and then the QRS complex would be narrow. T wave would be normal, and then so you would keep marching along like that with just consistently long PR intervals, greater than 0.2.
And what would the PR intervals be to each other?
They would be equal.
So you are saying, if I got to draw what's normal, so you guys can have a reference. If this is normal, then what you just described, tell me if I'm wrong,
yeah, I forget my
is this.
box.
Long.
Yeah,
Is that what you're describing?
that is what I would
Do we agree with what he just described?
Yes,
Yes.
we all do.
You all do?
tell
Yes, we all do.
Nobody else.
You guys disagree, you're wrong.
Okay. Okay, great. So here,
How do you
I want you to
limit
draw
this
this
guy?
now. I'll come back to that. This is what they agreed here.
You're mostly
This is what they
right
said.
though.
They said that they had a P wave, and then that P wave happened, and then the AV node had a longer delay than normal.
Yeah, I just thought you might see a U wave, but wasn't.
Okay.
Everyone agreed except for you.
So,
You're all wrong. You're wrong. That's what mom says.
The drawer.
okay, so here's what you have now. You have a normal sinus rhythm. You have a normal sinus rhythm. There is a problem in the AV node, okay? That problem is not consistent. Or let me change that. The problem is consistent, but the problem doesn't have, it doesn't happen every single time. So what you have is you have a normal sinus rhythm trucking along, and then every so often you have something that disrupts the AV node entirely. It's completely disrupted. And then everything's back to normal again, and then it's completely disrupted again. Consistently? Yep.
So then you wouldn't have a,
It's
You
We're
wouldn't
not
have a-
discussing right now, Mark.
To draw fewer out.
Yes, it's completely non-functional in its disruption. So everything's normal, everything is normal, everything is normal, everything is normal, and then it's completely non-functional. And then it's completely normal, completely normal, completely normal, completely normal, and then completely non-functional. And in fact, it's non-functional in a sequence.
As, when you say non-functional, you mean it does not depolarize?
I'm saying it happens in the AV node when I say it's non-functional. Nothing, zero, X, nothing, non-functional, nada.
Nada.
Perfect. No. I don't know how many other different ways to say that.
How do you sign
Arete.
language that?
So it's different every time, so.
I didn't say there's anything, do I need to define it again?
Yeah.
No, I
Completely
know where you're
normal.
going with this.
It is not
Completely
in type
normal,
one.
completely normal, completely normal, completely non-functional.
You're trying to go down the hard
Completely
block route
normal,
and you're just
completely
change
normal,
it. You
completely
leave this
normal,
noise in.
completely non-functional.
You're telling me it's not a hard block?
You really want it to be a moment's
Draw.
one, don't you?
It's not.
I know it's not.
Tell me what it's gonna look like.
It is too.
It's a moment's too.
Yeah. That's what I was confirming, guys.
I don't know what that is. That doesn't help me at all to draw anything.
I really
Moments
You'll have a P wave and then nothing, and then you come back in time, normal sinus rhythm.
I'm not sure I understood what you
time?
just said.
Of course not. Because you don't know anything.
I don't.
You have a normal sinus rhythm, your P waves will truck out normally.
Okay?
Every P to Q is normal, every P has a Q, so you have a normal
Every
sinus.
P to Q, what if I don't have a Q wave?
I haven't stopped, so you stopped.
Oh,
P to Qs are normal.
I don't have a Q wave though. So how can I have a P
You,
to Q?
P to R.
Thank you. All right.
Sorry,
Go on.
my apologies. You have a normal P to R interval, you have a R for every P, and it will normally march out in time. And then you'll have a P, and then you'll have a blank space, because when you come back to the AV nodes, you will not have a QRS segment. Your P wave will come back in normal, and you'll have normal sinus rhythm after that.
Give me more information about that P wave. The last couple of P waves you just talked about.
They will still be in time with each other. The P wave morphology will be normal.
So is this what
I'm
you're
really
saying?
curious about what you're saying.
He just made it sound like you just don't have to worry about it.
But where would that be seen?
Or this isn't enough electrical activity to even care
Is that
about.
what you're saying?
And
That's
there.
what I'm saying.
Do we agree or disagree with this?
Would it
Agree or
be,
disagree with what he just said? Okay.
You want to ask him? You want me to ask him?
I'll ask him. We have a question.
Yes?
Where, if you don't have the QRS to cover up the repolarization of the atria, would you see that?
Say it again.
So usually the repolarization,
PT wave, you probably won't see the PT wave because it is almost always so slight that we don't really see it.
okay.
It's possible though that you will see a little bit of a wave there that is the PT wave.
And would that be positive or negative deflection?
Would it be positive or negative? In which lead would
It would
it
be
be, first of all?
negative.
Two?
So
Negative,
it would be positive or negative, why would it be negative?
because the only reason that the T wave is
Oh, yeah,
positive
two,
is
three.
because it repolarizes out in, but that wouldn't happen in the atria, because they repolarize in the same way they repolarize,
Good.
or sorry, depolarize.
Please draw for me what you would see. This part of the AV node right here, dead.
Dun dun dun.
Too bad. It looks good like that.
The AV node is dead right there. What do you think?
Well, we thought that the P wave would still fire, but it will be unaffiliated with the QRS, and then the QRS is gonna go and it's gonna develop its pattern based on its intrinsic rate since it's not getting cued by any other thing other than itself. So P waves will march out, QRSs will march out, but they'll be marching out at different rates.
To
Do we agree?
to their own
Yes.
beats.
So what you explained, hopefully,
It's hard to draw.
I'm gonna draw it in two separate things here.
That's the way that I did it.
That's the way I did it too.
I tried that and got real messy.
Something like this. And then,
And the QRS would be a lot slower, right?
Because it'd be at a
Well, it
junctional rate.
depends on its intrinsic rate, which will be slower.
So S H intrinsic should be 90.
Something like that.
But the, yeah, it would be
Although you,
and then we
And then it's smash them together.
smash them together.
Yeah, so it almost looks like the QRS is drifting into the P waves, but it's not really because if you were to caliper it out, it's staying consistent.
We agree?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
But the P waves would be faster.
Yes.
Yeah,
There's
so
five-
you probably have some
It
missed
depends
P
on what
waves
rate
and some
we're
QRS
doing the math.
complexes.
Yeah.
if we're
Not miss the mirror.
no stimulation, it would be
It just isn't like intrinsic.
and then 40 to 60.
Yeah, I mean, I could have drawn that,
But you have to know they're still there.
I suppose, like this.
But I'm missing
Be-
them because I can't
It's
see.
better.
You can see very P waves at times.
If that makes you happier.
Yes.
But it's still there.
What did you say?
You need to acknowledge its presence.
All right, calm down.
Okay, do we agree?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. So, some of you are figuring out what I'm doing. Oh my gosh. It was a big secret, wasn't it? You have a problem with the AV node. You have a problem with the AV node. The AV node is perfectly functional. The AV node is perfectly functional. But within the AV node, there is a problem where its refractoriness is longer than it's supposed to. And something keeps causing a problem with that refractoriness that makes it a little bit longer than it should be. What will we see?
Repeat that one more time.
Yes. The AV node is affected such that there is a problem within the AV node. I'll describe it even further. There's a problem within the AV node where every time the AV node fires, there's a problem with some of the cells within the AV node getting through their refractory period. So it fires, there's a refractory period, it fires and everything's fine. But some of the cells had a disruption with their refractory period and they're a little bit longer than normal. And then the next time they fire, there's more of those cells within the AV node that have a problem with their refractory period. And the next time it fires, there's even more of those cells that have a refractory period problem. Until they're all in refractory together. And it takes them all a period of time to get reset and get past their refractory period. What would we see? Do you want to
Are
just
you
say a
asking
nod?
me?
Sure.
You would see a
Don't.
second.
Give me a name.
Uh,
Give me a description of electrically what we're
The
seeing.
PR interval would be longer and longer until you would have a drop QRS complex. So it would be going, 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 and then it would be gone.
Wider, wider, so every beat would be
I
wider.
don't have enough information yet. Give me more information.
So, yeah, so the PR gets longer and longer, and then you will not have a QRS complex after a certain period of time. And then it will continue out, hopefully short again. The PR interval will be short again. It will get longer and longer and longer, and then you will again drop a QRS complex.
Do you understand what he just said?
Yes.
So what he said, what he described, was that you have everything that's normal this first time that it fires, because the AV node's not in refractory at all. The first time it fires. Right? But the next time that the AV node fires, from this time, there's still some of those cells that were in refractory. Because some of those cells and channels were in refractory, there's less channels open. Because there's less channels open, there's a bit of delay. After that time that fired, there was even more of those channels that were refractory. So there were less channels available, less cells within the AV node available to pass that signal through. So the next time you come around, it takes even longer to get through. Does that make sense? And then the next time that it comes through and fires, everything was in refractory, so the AV node didn't fire at all. And you lost the QRS complex. I'm going to come down to the second line. So the next time it fired, there was nothing. Does that make sense? But because there was nothing, there was time. And time allowed the entire system to be reset. And so everything was brought back to normal again. Make sense?
Would you categorize that as regular or regularly irregular?
Well, excellent question. What are my P to P intervals?
Irregular.
It would be the same.
Regular.
Regular. What are my R to R intervals?
Irregular.
Irregular. And what happens if, when I come back to this, I go through the same pattern again?
That's regular.
And so what is my rhythm?
Irregular.
Regular.
Regularly.
Regularly irregular.
Regularly irregular. Irregular because my R to R intervals are not the same, and there's a complete drop, but I can establish a pattern to it.
How long do you have to sit and look for that?
Great
drift
question.
Before you're like,
Yeah, that's
this
a really
is
good
regular.
question. It depends on what's going on with that AV node and how often that happens. Sometimes if it's every 2 or every 3, we can see it within just a 6-second strip. Sometimes if it's every 4 or 5, it might take a little bit longer. But I can see the pattern immediately because I'm looking at my PR intervals. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
Questions on that?
What causes a longer and longer delay in the AV node? What would cause that rhythm?
Yeah, so can I come back to that in just a minute? I want to ask you to do one more. I want to ask you to do one more. So I want you to draw 2 more rhythms. I want you to draw this rhythm first. I want you to draw the rhythm where you have a complete disruption of the AV node. You have a normal sinus rhythm with a complete disruption of the AV node. I already asked you to draw that once, right? But that disruption happens every other cardiac cycle. I want you to draw a normal sinus rhythm where the AV node is completely disrupted every other cardiac cycle. Did y'all hear that? The P to P's march out, the R to R's march out, but they're twice as long because you're missing a QRS complex every other one. That make sense? Okay, just below that, I want you to draw one more rhythm. Remember the rhythm that I just described, which was the AV node, it fires completely normally, and then those cells, some of those cells are in refractory, and so the signal takes a little bit longer to get through that second time. And then the next time it fires, more of those cells are in refractory, so it takes even longer to fire, right? Until there's so long that all of them are in refractory. Does that make sense? Okay, I want you to draw that same rhythm, but here's what I want you to draw. You start with a normal sinus rhythm. And after the AV node fires that first time, the next time, they're all in refractory. And then they're all back to normal. And then the time that it fires after that, they're all in refractory again. I want you to draw that rhythm.
Can you say that again?
Yes. I want you to remember the concept of a normal sinus rhythm, that where the AV node fires normally, and then it subsequently has more and more of the cells in refractory until they're all in refractory, and then they all get reset and you start over. But this time what I want you to think of is you've got a normal sinus rhythm, the AV node is completely normal, and by the second time, they're all in refractory. Then they're all reset, and then they're all in refractory again. That refractoriness that you drew before is just happening faster now, more often. They're all normal, then they're all in refractory. Then they're all normal, then they're all in refractory. Please draw that.
I feel like it'd be some difference, but I don't see how.
Are you just making a point that you don't know?
Because the PR, maybe your PR is longer, like a long PR, and then every other is a drop beat. Right? Because
Shannon, are you the one that described that last one?
Refractory.
The one before that?
Block would be the same thing
You
as
described?
refractory. That's my thought.
That's not what you described. Okay. All right, somebody describe for me what you're going to look like, what you're going to see on this one.
The same thing.
same thing, but with a long PR, not elongating, just a long PR,
Why would you see a long PR?
because there's something wrong with the signal going through
What
the
did I
AV.
say?
There,
A refractory period to me would be the same thing as a block. Because if the
What did I say? What did I ask you to draw?
the second beat, the AV is in complete refractory.
So what's in the first beat?
Normal.
So why are you saying it's long?
okay. Because I thought that even the cells just had issues, not that they went back to normal. Just the second
But I
beat
said they
they
went
were.
back to normal.
What's that?
But I said they went back to normal.
Well, I missed that part.
Okay. So it looks the same, right? So if this is our normal sinus rhythm, if we have a rhythm where the PR interval is elongated because there are channels in the AV node that are closed off more than normal, but they're consistent, so we have a consistent PR interval, so the PRI equals the PRI all the way through, right? But the PRI is greater than our 0.2 that it normally is, yes?
Mm-hmm.
Then what we have is a first degree heart block. And a first degree heart block is crap.
Each beat.
Meaning if I say it's crap, then how are you going to define the rhythm?
Sinus. Normal sinus.
With?
With a first degree heart
Good,
block.
I have a sinus rhythm with a first degree heart block, right?
It should be a beat, right?
Okay. If I have a rhythm where all of my P waves march out completely normally, all my PRIs march out completely normally, all my QRSs march out completely normally, but I'm dropped a QRS here and there, yet this P wave comes in normal time, then I have
Second degree motive two.
Then I have a second degree heart block, type 2. What's that?
The top one, first degree.
Block. Heart block. So then I have a second degree heart block, type 2.
Is the PRI still within normal limits usually?
It depends.
Okay.
It's possible that I have a second. So the first degree heart block is crap. The second degree heart block is often the rhythm. So you can do away with saying that this is a sinus rhythm with a second-degree heart block type 2, and you can just say, this is a second-degree heart block type 2. That's perfectly fine. A second-degree heart block type 2 can have crap in it. So you can have a second-degree heart block type 2 with a first-degree heart block built into it,
Oh, God.
because first-degree heart block is crap. Okay, if I have all of my P waves march out, all of my R waves march out, so my P to P interval equals my P to P interval all the way through. My R to R interval equals my R to R interval all the way through. But my P to P interval does not equal my R to R interval. Then I have a complete heart block, or a third-degree heart block. Does that make sense?
What's the secondary heart block type?
Oh,
The winky block?
That's a good question. Should we talk about it?
Not right now.
Right? If I have a rhythm, where I've got a refractory problem in my AV node that causes my AV node to be more and more in refractory until it gets to the point that it is totally in refractory, I lose a beat, and then it starts the process over again. Then I have what's called a second-degree heart block, type 1. Good. This is also sometimes referred to as Winky Bach, the same as the name of the middle pathway. It is also referred to as Movitz 1. You'll see it written as Movitz 1. And you'll see the secondary heart block written as Movitz 2. Movitz. Sometimes.
What does MOVIT stand for?
It's Niedermeyer. If I have a situation where I have my P to P's equal my P to P's, my R to R's equal my R to R's, and there is a relationship between my P to P's and my R to R's. They are a multiple of each other. So clearly, my P waves and my QRSs are related to each other when I have them. And I have a 2-to-1 conduction. And I have a 2-to-1 conduction. Then I could have one of two rhythms, of which you just drew them both, and they look the same. So what I have here is a second-degree untypable heart block. It's untypable, meaning I can't type it as type 1 or type 2 off of just the EKG itself. I can, when I see my patient, I can either if I see a patient correlation or if I see a longer strip where something else comes out, but at least off of the EKG, if that's all I see, I can't type it. So I say it's a second-degree untypable. Make sense?
I see. You can't tell if it's getting longer and dropping, or you can't tell if it's just dropping.
Correct. Because I don't have enough complexes to do it.
Yeah.
What I will say is this. If you have a second-degree untypable and you're watching the strip, if at any point in time in that patient you get two QRS complexes together, at any point in time, in other words, if at any point in time it drops to this rhythm for two complexes, or if it drops to this rhythm for two complexes, then you know what the type is. Because the two types will not cross over with each other, ever. They'll never cross over with each other. So at any point in time with your patient, at any point in time you have them, you get two complexes together. you can figure out what the type is. You can also have some correlation with the patient. Type 1, first degree and second degree type 1 are most of the time reasonably benign. There are some bad things that can cause them, but there are also benign things that can cause them. Just increasing your parasympathetic involvement or a vagal maneuver can lead to one of those. A third degree heart block can be both good or bad, meaning the same things that can lead to a first degree or a winky block can actually lead you down to a third degree. Now the fact that it is a third degree is bad, but it could have been a benign reason that led you to the third degree, and so minor patient care for a period of time will get them back. But a third degree can also be caused by bad stuff, their heart's going bad. I'll discuss all those later. Second degree type 2 is always bad. Second degree type 2 is always bad. There aren't benign things that cause second degree type 2s. They're always bad. So for example, if I've got a second degree untypable heart block with a really bad patient that has some serious cardiac issues, it's almost always going to be a MOBITS 2. And you'll need to treat it as such. Make sense? Questions?
What's our treatment?
We're done.
With you, more.